Hi everyone, what's up? I am Sophia, and today I will be teaching you all how to take proper notes from a textbook. So I'm assuming you've all been here for some time now. You've been in AP World for about a month or two now. You're kind of getting into this process. You're kind of getting used to it all, taking notes and all of that. So, yeah, I'm a junior currently, and I took AP World History as a sophomore, and I got a 5 on the exam. So hopefully my tips will help you. Can you guys hear me, or can you guys not hear me? Drop a yes in the chat if you can hear me. If not, I'm just gonna assume everyone can hear me. I'll type it, can you hear me? Just drop a yes in the chat if you can currently hear me. Okay. Jana, Andrew, are you guys good? Can you guys hear me? Good. Okay, it's okay. We'll get started. I'll just assume that you all can hear me and we'll get started. So how do you guys usually take notes? So like in my AP World class from a textbook, our teacher usually used to give us like guided notes. So it would have the questions on like a packet and you'd have to like go in the reading and like find the answers. Or would you guys just have to like read it all on your own and you would have to like kind of decide what's the most important or like pick out the most important facts? So I think those are the two most common ones. It's either guided notes or you take your own notes. I'm gonna my notes, they were guided notes. So I don't really have my own examples of textbook notes because, yeah. So if anywho, let's get right into the PowerPoint. So as always, follow Fiveable. The social media at is Think Fiveable on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You'll get notified, or Twitter and Instagram mainly useful for knowing when live streams are. YouTube, they also have a lot of nice videos. Like Amanda has a lot of videos on AP World, so that would be good to check out. Yes. Hi, Eric. All of them. We also have some upcoming streams coming up. In the button, I believe you guys can see it. It says Mongols live review tomorrow. So tomorrow we have a live stream about the Mongols, really big empire, with Varun and Jed at 6 p.m. Eastern. So you guys might want to check that out because the Mongols are very important to AP World. And then on October 6th, we have a student study group. I think it's on the East Coast, if I'm not mistaken, but it's with Varun again and Shruti, and it's also at 6 p.m. Eastern, so go check that out. And then on October 7th, we have the Silk Roads with Skylar Walters, also at 6 p.m. Eastern. You guys should check all of these out because Mongols are very important, and so is the Silk Roads because it's a trade route. So let's get into it. So in the stream, we'll basically be going over like why should you take notes, like note-taking tips, and then I'm gonna personally take notes. So I'm gonna have a doc open and textbook open, and I'm gonna be taking guided notes and showing you guys how to do that, and then I will be answering any questions that you have about anything in AP World. So, why should we take notes? Notes may seem annoying, but trust me, they're one of the most useful resources that you have, especially when it comes to studying for the AP test or just studying for exams in general. You'll always want your notes. Notes are very useful to have. Taking notes just helps you remember more information. If I'm reading a textbook, if I'm supposed to read a chapter and I'm reading it, but I'm not taking notes, I'm not going to be able to process the information as well. I'll tend to probably just skim through it or not read like in depth. And I won't be able to pick up the important information that I need. But if I'm taking notes, then it's like I'm going to want to find the most important details. I'm going to read the text properly. I'm going to pick out the most important details. I'm going to write it out. And that way my brain is going to be able to process the information better. So writing down notes, whether it's digitally, manually, anything, it really helps you remember the information better. It keeps you organized. If you try and process everything in your head, it's just not going to work. You're not going to remember every single little thing. If you have notes, you can keep them organized by unit, by continent, by country, by time period. It just helps you. You can go back later and look over it, and you'll be able to find the information a lot more easier versus if you just tried remembering everything in your head. Allows you to read more thoroughly. So yes, as I said, if you were reading a textbook and you weren't taking notes, you're not going to read it as in depth as if you were taking notes. If you're taking notes, you're more likely to read the text properly, read each sentence, pick out the most important information. But if I'm just reading it, I'm not going to have any incentive to like read it properly because if I wasn't taking notes, then I'm just going to probably like skim through it and not really pay attention. It makes you more focused and less distracted. Yes. So if you're taking notes, you're going to be more focused because you're going to try and look for the most important pieces of information. You're going to pull them out. You're going to write them down. You're not going to be as distracted because you're going to be so focused on trying to pick out the most important pieces of information, trying to read everything versus if you were just reading it and you weren't taking notes, you'd probably get bored and you'd be like, oh, this isn't useful anyway. I'm getting bored, and you probably just go on your phone or do something else. And yeah, keeping notes just helps you be more focused. And it allows for creativity. Everyone has a different way of taking notes. There are many ways to take notes. People decorate their notes. People make it all fancy. People just have plain notes. Whichever way, it allows you to be creative. And taking notes allows you to remember the information in your own way. So yeah. Tips and tricks for taking notes. So when I usually take notes, I tend to write down a lot. I write down almost everything, but you shouldn't do that. You should only write down what you think is the most important. If something is important, write it down. If something's I don't really need to know that, then don't bother writing it down. A lot of us get paranoid, oh, we need to know every single thing. But no, you don't need to know every single thing. Just write down the most important pieces of information. Find a way that suits you best. Like I said, not everyone is gonna have the same way of taking notes. Everyone processes information differently, so you should take notes in a way that is the most organized for you, and it's more when you go back to your notes, you should be able to understand your notes. So yeah, there's outlines, the basic outlines. I think that's what most of us do. It's basically you'll have a header or a title, and then you'll have one main point, and then you'll have sub notes under that for each main point. So I'll show you an example in just a second. And then we have Cornell notes. I use this a lot in my social studies class in middle school, but basically for Cornell notes, you split your notebook or you split your paper into sections, and for the middle section, you'll have all the information. On the left side, you'll write questions or maybe the date or something, but it's it helps you keep your notes organized in different sections. Again, I'll show you that in a different slide. And then we have mind maps. That's basically you make one point, you have your big idea in the center, and then you have a bunch of lines or branches coming out, and you list all the important facts around that. So some people organize their notes that way, and digitally. Not everyone likes to take notes writing down. Some people do on their iPad. There's specific apps. I can tell you guys at the end if you guys would like to know any apps that would be useful for note taking, but yeah. And then I would say use abbreviations. This is very useful, especially in class, because in class, your teacher is going to be lecturing a lot, and your teacher might go through the information fast, and you might not have time to write down every single thing that your teacher says. So it's good to abbreviate a lot of words. And plus, you also don't want to be writing a lot in general. Your hand's going to start hurting and all of that. So I'd abbreviate as much as you can, as long as you understand what you're abbreviating, though. Yes. And like I said, keep them organized. You don't want to go back to your notes and not remember what's what. Oh, which continent is this? Oh, what time period is this from? You want to keep everything organized. You can go back and be able to tell what is what. And then this kind of has to do with notes, but like maybe after you take notes and you're trying to remember stuff, maybe make flashcards for the most important like vocab words or key terms. And then here's some examples of good note taking. I couldn't get my own notes, plus my notes aren't the best. My notes basically just follow the left column, which is basically a simple outline. So for the outline, you're going to want to have a main title. So whatever like the broad theme is maybe, or a topic that you're talking about. Like if you're talking about the Ottoman Empire, then you would put the Ottoman Empire as your title. Then you would want the subject. So maybe you're talking about like the military, about the Ottoman Empire, like the Janissaries, all that. So you're going to want to put military maybe in the subject line. Then you're going to want to put like item 1, item 2, item 3. So let's say I have the Ottoman Empire. So I'm going to put them in the title. Subject, I could talk about like military, and then for items, I could talk about like Janissaries, what is that, and so on and so forth. And you'd keep repeating that for every like main topic. And then on the right, we have the Cornell notes, as I said. So basically in this one, they split it into 2 columns. On the right column, you're just gonna have all your notes. And maybe on the left column, you'll just have a basic summary, or maybe you'll have questions, and then on the right, your notes will answer that question. So the left column is very useful. If you don't have time to go back through all of your notes, you could just look at the left column. So do we have any questions about note-taking in general? Or is there anything you guys would like to know about note-taking that I can possibly help you with before we get into like me actually demonstrating it? What way do you guys usually take notes? You guys do like the basic outline? Do you do Cornell notes? Is there any like other way that I haven't mentioned that maybe you guys take notes? No? Okay, we'll just stick with these for now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to go step by step through like through note taking. So I'm going to have a textbook open, and I'm going to have a document for notes open, which I'll link in the description here. And so basically you can follow along with me while I take notes, and I'll show you basically how I take notes and maybe other ways to take notes. You guys can get a good idea of how to take proper notes. So let me share this link with you guys. I'm just gonna put it in the description instead of the box thing. So let me know if you guys can open that. Hopefully you guys can access it. Okay, I think this is the proper link. There we go. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I have a, oops, I haven't opened up the textbook yet. Okay. So I have this AP World textbook here. It's called Traditions and Encounters. So basically today we're going to be talking about the states and the societies of sub-Saharan Africa. So let's get started. So what I'm gonna want to do first is I'm gonna want to create a title. So let me make my title maybe a bigger font, and then I'm gonna center it. Let's make that like 20. And then I'm gonna call it whatever the title of this chapter is. So it's called States and Societies of Sub-Saharan Africa. So I'll probably put like chapter 18, and then States and Societies of Sub-Saharan. That's going to be my overall title. Maybe I'll underline it just to make it kind of clear. So now that we have our title, we can start going through. Okay. So here basically it talks about everything that's going to be discussed in the chapter. So here we have effects of early African migrations, Islamic kingdoms and empires, and then African societies and cultural developments. So those are going to be the main topics within this chapter, and then you're going to have little subtopics under that, like agriculture, political organization, trans-Saharan trade, Indian Ocean trade, all of that. So let's see. And then here we have a little eyewitness story. It's just an oral tradition. We'll skip that for now. Okay, so now here is our first chapter. And as you can see, we have the big main idea right here, effects of early African migration. So what I'm gonna wanna do is I'm gonna make the font smaller now, maybe like 18, and I'm probably gonna bold it. And then I'm gonna say effects of early African migrations. Effects, maybe I'll make it 16. Effects of early African migrations. Actually, maybe I'll underline that. So this is our main topic of this section. We're going to be talking about early African migrations. So now here we have a little gist of it. So we have a little summary. Maybe we're going to want to take like 1 or 2 notes on the summary. So it talks about by 1000 CE, the Bantu-speaking people had settled in most parts of Africa south of the equator, and the Kushite, Sudanese, Mande, and other people had also established communities. Some African peoples undertook small-scale migrations long thereafter, even to the 19th century. By 1000, however, most migrations were complete, and for the next several centuries, African peoples built societies on the foundations of the small communities that the Bantu people and other migrations had generated. So if you had to pick possibly 1 or 2 things from this small paragraph right here, what would you say that we should take notes on? What do you think is one of the most important things here that we should write down in our notes? Oh, is it not shareable? Oh no, it's access denied. Shoot. Can you be sure that your note taking that is shared for anyone with the link? Is it not shareable? How do I... Anyone? Let's see. Oh, anyone with the link. Got you. Okay. Okay, I think this should work. Can you guys open it now? Yes? Okay, good. Let's continue. Okay. So back again. If you had to pick 1 or 2 most important pieces of information from this little paragraph here, what would you say that we should write down? What do you say that we should know before getting into all of this? It could be 1 or 2 big ideas in this paragraph. Does anyone have an idea of... Let me also zoom this in because I think you guys... Okay. This should be better. Anything? Anyone have any ideas? Okay. So if I were doing this, I would say this thing right here. I'd sum it up. I'd say that by 1000, we had the Bantu people in the south, and we had other groups such as the Kushite, Sudanese, Mande, and other people established communities. And then I would also say this part. I would kind of sum this up. So I'd say by 1000, most migrations were complete and African peoples started to build societies. So right here, I'm gonna kind of sum this up right here. So maybe I'll put like a bullet point, or I'll do, oops, it's underlined. Okay, so I would say by 1000 CE, Bantu people, what was it, living in South? Yes. South of the equator. Settled in most parts of Africa. And then I'll abbreviate South as S. of the equator and other groups such as the Kushites, what was it, Sudanese? Yeah. And I'm just going to write Sudanese live too. And then I'm going to sum probably this part right here, because I think this is really important to know that by 1000 CE, most migrations were complete. So I'll probably just say by 1000 CE, most migrations were complete. And people started to form complex societies based off of the Bantu people. I think that gives us a kind of pretty good summary of what this is trying to say. So yeah, you just want to look and it's kind of your best estimate to kind of say like, oh, this is important, I should write this down. This isn't important, I probably shouldn't write this down. So now we're going to move on. So now we have this subheading here called agriculture and population growth. So under here, I have this right here. So now I'm going to, I'll probably just make this the same. Let's lower that. And then I'm going to write agriculture and population growth. I'll probably put like a bullet point right here. You don't have to. I'm just going to kind of put it to separate it. Actually, I don't think I'm going to put it. I think it's good like this. I'm going to kind of space it a bit so you can see that it's, and then actually let me make this a bit bigger, maybe like 18. And then I'll make this one like 16. And then again, you can underline it, or maybe you can italicize it if you want to differentiate that like this is the main topic. This is kind of like a subtopic within that topic. So yes. Now we're going to start reading this. This is a lot. So again, we have all of this. So we're not going to want to write down every single thing. So maybe just take a few minutes to kind of read this paragraph to yourself. I'll kind of also read it aloud, but it's a lot. So the principal early result of the Bantu and other migrations was to spread agriculture and herding to almost all parts of Africa, excluding deserts and dense equatorial rainforests. As they established agricultural societies, cultivators and herders displaced many of the hunting, gathering, and fishing people who previously inhabited sub-Saharan Africa and absorbed them into their societies. By about 500 BCE, most Bantu-speaking people had mastered the techniques of iron metallurgy, which enabled them to fashion iron axes, and hoes that facilitated further cleaning of lands and extension of agriculture. By the early century CE, cultivation and herding had reached the southernmost parts of Africa. Yams, sorghum, and millet were the dietary staples of many people in South Africa. The indigenous Khoi people adopted cattle raising even before Bantu and Kushite herders moved into the region. Those developments resulted in increased agricultural production, rising population, and pressure for continuing migration to new territories. So yes, this is a lot. And you may be inclined to write like almost everything here because almost everything here seems important. But really, we kind of want to just get the main points of what this paragraph is trying to say. So we could just say like the main, the principal early result of the Bantu and other migrations was to spread agriculture and herding to almost all parts of Africa. So we could say the result of all migrations was spreading agriculture and herding to all parts of Africa. We can just sum that up right there. So you could just say, let's unbold this. Results of migrations to Africa included spreading agriculture and herding. There, I summed that one up. And then we could say established agricultural societies, cultivators and herders displaced the many hunting, gathering, and fishing people. About 5,000. I guess it's semi-important because you're saying that we could say Africa turned into more of an agricultural society rather than like the past, like hunting, gathering, and all of that. So you could say Africa became more agricultural. Rarely any more fishing, etc. And then if we go back, we could say, okay, this seems important. By about 500 BCE, most Bantu speaking people had mastered the techniques of iron metallurgy. So you could say, and hose that further to reach the southernmost part of Africa. So I think this is a really important aspect of the Bantu people. So I'm going to put that down because iron metallurgy wasn't that common then, and the Bantu people started mastering that. So I think that's an important aspect. So we could say by 500 BCE, Bantu people mastered metallurgy. You can list the examples of the types, like the hoes, the axes, all of that, but I don't think that's necessary. So, and hoes, this helped clear the lands. So I think this is important. We could say this helped clear lands and spread agriculture. So this is important because Africa was able to become more agricultural because of metallurgy, because of these tools that helped make it easier to like clear the land. So yeah. And then we say by the early cultivating and herding had reached the southernmost part. Okay, I think this one's important. Yams, sorghums, and millets were the dietary staples of many people in Africa. So you could say people in Africa mainly ate, what was it? Yams, millet, sorghum, all that. And then, oops. All of this, and then we could just kind of sum it up. We could say all of this resulted in more agricultural production, rising population, and pressure. So we could say all of this, all of the following listed above resulted in more agricultural production and a rising. So it seems like it looks like, so we kind of took this whole paragraph here and we kind of summed it down into like these few like important aspects of it. So that's how you kind of want to do it. You want to make sure you're getting the information, but you don't want to write like word for word from every sentence. You kind of want to get like the gist of every sentence. Oops, I wrote hunting. That's not a word. Hunting. Does anyone have any questions so far, or good? So we have this. So we have now the effects of early African migrations. We have this little sub-point. We have this little sub-point of agriculture and population growth. Now we're going to go back here. So now this is also, let's see, yes, this is also part of agriculture and population growth. So maybe as we look here, we see bananas. So we could make a thing here talking about maybe we could say like bananas, or here. And then we could say bananas. And then under that, we could have like, why does it do that? We could have like little subtopics about bananas here. So actually, I'm going to delete this. So I'm going to probably just like maybe underline it, but I'm not going to bold it. Because bolding for me is like the different sections. So this, I'm just going to underline it. So this is still part of agriculture and population growth. It's just going to be in its own little section right here. So now I'm probably just going to list all the facts about bananas here. Whatever seems the most important to me about bananas. So it says here, the introduction of bananas to Africa encouraged a fresh migratory surge. First domesticated in Southeast Asia, bananas entered Africa by way of sea lanes across the Indian Ocean. So I'm actually going to write this first. So bananas were first domesticated in Southeast Asia. And then bananas entered Africa by way of sea lanes across the Indian Ocean. So maybe I might make that a subpoint under here. I could say came to Africa through the Indian Ocean. So here I have like a main point, and then here I have like a little subpoint. Maybe I could make that a different, maybe I'll make it like a little s. Oops. For now, I'll just make it like a plus sign. I'll change that later. But here we have the main point, where was it domesticated? And then here we could have a little subpoint saying, oh, but it came to Africa through this form of transportation, through the Indian Ocean. And then let's see what else. During the late centuries, Malay seafarers from the islands that make up modern Indonesia sailed west beyond India, and by the early centuries, they were exploring the East African coasts. Between 300 and 500 CE, they colonized the island of Madagascar and established banana cultivation there. Apart from bananas, they brought Asian yams, taro, chickens, and Southeast Asian cultural traditions. Malagasy, the language spoken on Madagascar even today, belongs to the Austronesian family of languages. Okay, so we have a little thing here talking about how bananas came to Africa and who brought them here. So we could say, so maybe we could make this one also a subpoint, or maybe I might make it its own point. So I might say, Malay, so we could say Malay seafarers, and then what does it say? Islands that make up, were exploring East African coast by the early century CE. We're exploring East African coasts in early CE. And then maybe again, like I said, we could make a little subpoint under that. And here it talks about what they did. They colonized Madagascar. So we could say colonized Madagascar and established and so here I just summed up what this was trying to say. And then we could also have a little subpoint if you wanted, saying like what else they bought. Like we could say like yams, taro, chickens were also brought. So we could say yams brought yams, taro, chicken, and other cultural traditions. So yeah, here I kind of just summed up what this was trying to say. And then yeah, let's see what else does it say. Malagasy, we don't need to know. I don't think this is really important to know. From Madagascar, bananas easily made the jump to the East African mainland. By 500, several varieties of bananas had become well established. So they provided a nutritious supplement to Bantu diets and enabled the Bantu to expand into heavily forested regions where yams and millet did not grow well. Thus, cultivation of bananas increased the supply of food to the Bantu, enriched their diets, and allowed them to expand more rapidly than before. So I think this is important. It talks about how they helped the Bantu diets and allowed them to expand. But this sentence kind of right here just sums up what this was trying to say about the Bantu. So I'm going to focus on this kind of right here. So we could say cultivation We could make it its own point now. We could say cultivation of bananas helped Bantu as, what was it, their diet, as increased the food supply, helped diet, enrich diets, and help them expand. So therefore, I just kind of summarized what this was trying to say. So now, do you have any questions so far? Right now, I'm just like kind of doing it like that, so I might like go back and like reorganize this better when I'm done. But for right now, this is just kind of how I'm organizing my notes. Like this is like the main bullet, and then here are like the little bullets under that. So as you can see, that's how I'm kind of distinguishing it. So now we're on another topic. Oops, I keep going back to this. We're on another topic within. So we're still on the agricultural part and political and population growth, my bad. But now we're going to the population growth. So I'm going to probably go a little few more spaces down, and then I'm gonna put population growth. And if you're doing your notes digitally, you can also like, maybe if you want to have this font be different than the subpoints under it, you can do that. Whichever way it helps you organize your notes the best. So like if I wanted to change this and make it like, let's say Times New Roman, but then I wanted to keep like, let's say I wanted to do Amarante for like the text, I could do that. So let's go back to Arial. So we're going to underline it because that's what we're doing for each section. We have population growth. Now I'm going to just kind of quickly read through this and see what we need to know about the population growth in sub-Saharan Africa. This population history clearly reflects the significance of iron metallurgy and bananas. In 400 BC, before ironworking had influence, the population of sub-Saharan Africa stood at about 3.5 million. By the turn of the millennium, human numbers exceeded 11 million. By 800 CE, after banana cultivation spread through the continent, the sub-Saharan population climbed to 17 million. And by 1000, when Bantu had introduced agriculture, the population passed 22 million. Okay, so clearly we have a lot of different changes in the population growth. We can see that the population is constantly increasing with like iron metallurgy and bananas and this agriculture that's spreading throughout the continent. So we're going to kind of want to sum that up. So we could say like before Africa was introduced to like iron and bananas, the population was kind of low at about 3.5 million. But then we could say iron metallurgy and bananas and agriculture eventually led to the population rising to 22 million by 1000. So I think it's most important to know like before what the population was, before we had all the introductions to like agriculture and the iron. And then it's important to know like when we had this agriculture and when we had this metallurgy, it's passing 22 million. So it shows how that's clearly affecting the population in a positive way as it's growing. So here we could write, before the introduction of agriculture and iron metallurgy, and did it give us a time date? 400 BCE. So that was a while ago. The population stood at about, 3.5 million. And then we could say, however, as time went on, eventually, let me see what it says. Turn of the century, banana cultivation spread. So we could say when the introduction, we could say with the introduction of bananas and the intro and the spreading of, let's say, iron, metallurgy, and what was it? Agriculture from the Bantus. The population eventually exceeded 22 million. If you want to make a side note to yourself, maybe after that, you could say like, this shows how agriculture and an introduction to new tools maybe cause population to grow a lot. So here we have the facts, and then we can say this shows how like agriculture and like instruction to new tools cause the population to grow a lot, because for agriculture you're getting more food. So we could say like more food. You could say more food and better diets. Then in the introduction to new tools, as we know, it let them clear the lands better so they could spread agriculture, and it caused population to grow a lot. So I think those are the two main things that we need to know, just the population before and the population after the introduction of all of this. So now we have one more here. It's just about the Bantus. Now again, I'm going to do that, put a few spaces, and then I'm going to type Bantu people. What's the title? Bantu and forest peoples. And I'm going to underline this. Oh wait, shoot, I'm sorry, I just saw this now. If you're not typing your notes, a lot of this could also be done with different colors of pens. Yes, of course, color coding is such a useful way to organize your notes. Like if I wanted to make the titles like one color, like if I wanted to just keep this black, but then I wanted to make this like blue or something, then yes, perfect, go ahead. Definitely color code. I'm telling you, keeps your notes so much more organized. I'm too lazy to color code. Sometimes I'll do it, but a lot of the times I just use one color. But if you really have the time and really have the patience to keep using different colors, then go for it. I totally recommend that. But yes, thank you for saying that. That's a really good tip for taking notes. Use colors, different colors. Make your notes really colorful. Anyway, back to this. We have one more topic in this section. So we have the Bantus and the forest people. So again, I'm kind of just want to sum it up. The continuing Bantu migrations expansion. Also, before I continue, if there's a fact in the text that you guys think that I should take notes on that I haven't put in the notes, then please tell me, because I might be leaving some important stuff out that you guys think is important. So just tell me if I'm leaving anything out. So the continuing of Bantu migrations expansion and the establishment of new Bantu communities contributed to changes in relationship between Bantu and foraging people, such as the forest dwellers of Central Africa, once referred to as pygmies. In earlier times, the Bantu had often regarded the forest peoples as useful guides to environments that were unfamiliar to the Bantu. And oral traditions suggest that they relied on foragers' expert knowledge to learn about the possibilities that new environments offered. As Bantu populations surged, however, it became increasingly difficult for foragers to flourish. Some forest peoples joined the cultivators and effectively integrated into Bantu society. Others retreated into the forest, where they were able to sustain small-scale societies by becoming forest specialists and providing forest products such as animal skins in exchange for iron tools. Okay, so this section is basically talking about the relationship between Bantu and foraging people, the foraging people, such as the forest dwellers of Central Africa. So we could talk about, so we could say, maybe for this, we could say, so maybe we'll take a whole gist of it first. So you could say relationships between the Bantus and the forage of Central Africa changed as time went on. Then we could make us our little sub bullet points, and we could say before the Bantus found the foragers useful. And then what does it say? They found them useful guides to environments that were unfamiliar. So before, when the Bantus first settled, of course, they're going to be unfamiliar with the lands that they're walking in. So they took help from these foragers and they helped the Bantus. So found the foragers useful as they helped the Bantus explore environments, or how should I word this? Explore environments that were not familiar to. This is before. So we're kind of showing the change over time in this section here. So we're talking about before they found them as helpful. They had a good relationship with the foragers. And then now we could say, however, as the Bantu populations grew, it became increasingly difficult for foragers to flourish. So we have people who joined the Bantu society, but others retreated back into the forest. So now as time went on, we have this Bantu population that's just constantly growing from this agriculture and from these iron tools. So obviously they're not going to really need the help of the foragers anymore. And obviously the Bantu people are going to kind of overtake them because they're more advanced than these foragers who are hunting and gathering and still kind of in the prehistoric society stage. So we're going to say, however, as Bantus became more advanced and grew in population, foragers did not have much room to succeed. And then maybe I might make a little sub point under that one. What should I do for this one? I'll just do an equal. Okay, I'll just do an equal sign. So we could say, some foragers joined the Bantus while others retreated back into forests. What was it? Back into forests where they were able to continue living their lives. Continue their ways of living. So we kind of have this general idea here that okay, the Bantus became more advanced, so they kind of took over, and the foragers didn't have much room to succeed. And then we go into that more, and we say some foragers joined the Bantus while others had to retreat back into the forest to sustain their own ways of living. And then we could say we could have another relationship. So we could say that why isn't this? Okay, whatever. We could say, however, or we could say Bantus and foragers still traded as the foragers provided, what was it, skins? Animal skins in exchange for iron tools. So here we say the relationships changed. We talked about how they changed over time, and then we still say that even though this happened, Bantus and foragers still traded, as the foragers provided animal skins in exchange for iron tools. So here we have all of section 1 completed. So again, this is our big main section, and then we And then this is our little small section within it. So this is agriculture and population growth. And then these are our little small sections within that section. So maybe I'll do just a bit more, and then I'll answer whatever questions that you guys have. I don't think we'll be able to get through. Yeah, we're definitely not going to be able to get through the whole chapter. So maybe I'll start off with African political organizations. Maybe I'll do like one section on that, and then maybe I'll just go back and kind of reorganize my notes. So maybe I'll color code some stuff, maybe I'll highlight some stuff, all of that. And then I'll answer any questions that you guys have. So let's see, are we on a new page yet? Okay, I'll just start this on a new page. So our next topic is African political organization. So for the subtitle, like remember we had the main title, like the chapter name, and then we had these little subtitles right here. I bolded them and I italicized them. So we're gonna bold, italicize, whichever way you guys wanna do it. This is just the way that I'm gonna distinguish like this from that, or like this from that. So you can color code it, do whatever you want. So this is called African political organization. That's our big idea here. Our notes under this are going to be focused on the politics of Africa at this time and how they like form their societies in political ways. So again, we have the little, it gives us a little summary before we jump right into the specifics. So we're gonna, again, just read this and pick out what we think is the most important. Okay. By 1000 CE, after more than 2 millennia migrations, the Bantu had approached the limits of their expansion. Because agricultural peoples already occupied most of the continent, migrating into new territories and forming new settlements was much more difficult than in previous centuries. Instead of migrating in search of new lands to cultivate, then, African peoples developed increasingly complex forms of government that enabled them to organize their existing societies and more efficiently. So let's see what's important here. So it's basically saying that it was really hard to form, I guess, new settlements because most of, I guess, the continent at this time was like occupied. So they had to, instead of forming new settlements, they built on the societies that they already had, and they made them more complex, basically. So here we could say it was hard. So we could say like by 1000 CE, it was harder for the Bantu. What was it? The Bantu to approach the limits. Okay. It was harder for the Bantu to expand more because most places were already settled, or because most of the continent was already filled with people. I'm just kind of abbreviating. And then, so we could say, so instead of migrating, African peoples developed increasingly complex forms of government that enabled them to organize their existing societies more efficiently. So I'm going to make that a sub point under here. I'm going to say, because of this, it's just African people, because this then African people developed, okay, we could say African peoples developed complex forms of government, developed complex societies and governments that helped them be more organized. So yeah, this is basically what this is trying to say. That's kind of the gist of that. I'm gonna change. Okay. Now I'm gonna probably, actually, I might just stop here because it's already 5:56. Do you guys have any questions about note taking or about the class in general, or like my experiences with note taking, all of that? And again, most people have different ways. Like in my AP World class, we had guided notes, so our teacher would basically give us a packet and there would be like boxes with questions in it, and you basically had to find the answers like in the text while reading. But for others, you have to just take notes, and that's like kind of harder because on the guided notes it tells you what you're supposed to be writing down, it tells you what you're supposed to be answering, but here it's like you kind of have to like pick and choose what you want to write down. So yeah, let's see if I can organize this a little bit more. Maybe I'll make this a different font. I know some people, like when they're writing their notes, they like to use a really cursive style handwriting for their titles, like the calligraphy style, and it looks so good. I can never do that. Let's make this, let's just leave it at that for now. And then what font is this? 20? This is 18. And then for this, maybe I want to make my font that. And then maybe I want to, I don't know, if I want to change the color, maybe effects of early African migrations, or maybe, let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna keep it red. And then maybe we could keep it like this. And then maybe for this, I'll leave it at this font, or maybe I'll make it the same font. What was it? Covered by Your Grace. But instead, I'll make it like, maybe I'll highlight it, or I'll like do something. And then I'll keep, and then I'll do the same. I'm just gonna leave the rest for now. But again, there's so many ways that you can organize your notes. Color coding, highlighting, bullet points, outlines, Cornell notes, mind maps, digital. There's just so many ways, and it's important that you find a way that's most organized to you, and it's gonna help. Like when you go back to your notes, you should be able to understand what you wrote down. You should be able to distinguish, like, oh, this is period 1 of world history. This is from 1600. This is from Africa. Like you should, it should, your notes just shouldn't be like all over the place. So yes, are there any questions before I end the stream, or anything you guys want to know about the class in general? Okay, so I think this is it for notes. I hope I was able to give like, I hope this was fine. Like I hope my notes were pretty clear, and I hope you kind of understood what I was trying to like get at here. Just don't write everything down when you're taking notes. It's not going to help, and it seems like it's useful, but you really just want those the most important facts from each section that you're reading. And notes are still going to take a while. Like you're not, even if you pick the most important stuff, it's still going to take a while for you to like, I guess, take all these notes. But you still should be reading everything. Even if you're picking out the most important stuff, still read everything. That's important. But yeah, I think that's it for this stream. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, tune into the other streams that we have, the Mongols, the study session. And yeah, excellent advice. Thank you so much, Melissa. I appreciate it. I was worried about this stream. But yes, I think it went well. So thank you, everyone, and tune in to the next streams in the upcoming days. Yes, click the green button. It's right, should be right here somewhere. It says Mongols live review tomorrow. Click it to register for the events. It was my pleasure. Okay, bye.